My pleasure today to introduce Dr. Patricia Turning, who will deliver this year's Convocation address. Dr. Turning is Associate Professor of Medieval and Early Modern History and the recipient of Albright's 2017 Laughlin Distinguished Faculty Award for Scholarship. A scholarship of medieval history, Dr. Turning's courses include Sex and Society in Early Modern Europe, Powerful, Pious, and Poisonous European Women of Film, and Medieval Punishment and the Rise of Prisons in European Culture. Widely respected for her scholarship on criminality in medieval France, Turning's current research explores the connection between gender and imprisonment at the end of the Middle Ages. She received her Ph.D. from the University of California, Davis, and her bachelor's degree from the University of Akron with a double major in history and French. Dr. Turning joined Albright's community in 2013, and she is currently coordinator of the Medieval and Renaissance Studies minor and the faculty advisor to the History Honors Program. Dr. Turning.
Good morning. Welcome to Albright College. I know you're all anxious. I can see you're all tired. Yeah. So I'm going to keep my comments brief, and I'm going to try to stay really kind of tight to the script. I'm taking this morning as an opportunity to talk about origins. Obviously, this is the beginning of your journey as undergraduates, but as a medievalist, I want to say a few words about the inception of the institution and its ideology that you're about to become a part of. The modern university is a product of the 12th century, part of an era known as the Middle Ages. This period is generally associated with violence, corruption, cruelty, bigotry, essentially providing the pivotal plot points for any given season of a Game of Thrones. And frankly, this assessment is fairly accurate. As a historian of crime and punishment, a Game of Thrones has been really good for business, so blood, gore, violence, I'm right with you. There we go. What's going to happen Sunday? Dragon Ghost? We don't know. We'll find out. Historically, though, in the 12th century, European society was entering a period of relative calm and prosperity, especially when compared to the devastating Viking invasions that just recently subsided. In the 12th century, now there was a great sense of optimism in God and in salvation and in the power of faith. In the 12th century's cities were just recently repopulated with a booming and ambitious population wanting to get rich in trade and manufacturing. In the 12th century, governments were building bureaucracies and hierarchies of official law courts administering royal justice. International warfare was at a relative lull. You can use air quotes when you say that. Relative lull, but lull compared really to the scale of devastation and destruction of later centuries. And Europe had just recently triumphed in the First Crusade. It's in this environment of hope and purpose and spiritual favor that people demanded a predictable, more standardized, and reliable education that would enable them to have the tools necessary to thrive. No longer just to survive, but to thrive in such a new setting of possibility. They wanted to protect themselves with knowledge, they wanted to protect their money, they wanted to ensure their upward mobility, and they wanted to solidify their potential for salvation. These early universities were organized as guilds, like today's unions. These were guilds of either professors or students. The University of Paris and Oxford, these were created by religious experts who attracted students, who then needed structure to formalize their instruction and to guard themselves from local authorities. But in the South, in Italy in particular, students dominated the organization of the institution, and professors at Italian universities were at the mercy of their students. Keep this in mind, but don't get any ideas because that's not the reality. But at Italian universities, students decided what they would pay for tuition. Students decided what courses or curriculum they would take. and students could physically punish, or fine any professors who were late to class, who got off topic, or God forbid, they could physically punish a professor who was boring in lecture. Again, don't get any ideas, but keep it in mind. There were fairly few requirements to join these guilds as students. You had to be a male, you had to have enough money to pay for books, for housing, for courses, and you needed to have a working knowledge of Latin. These early schools were essentially what we would call today vocational schools. The entire purpose of education was to prep students for a career in one of three options: either medicine, law, or theology. And theology was the most important because that was prepping you for a career in God. All of the courses were designed to secure the student with a specific set of skills. And I always have to be careful not to use the take-in voice when I say a specific set of skills, so forgive me on that one, but a specific set of skills to gain employment in one of these three areas. The cities that hosted these beacons of higher education desperately fought to keep students and professors happy. Cities granted students and professors ridiculous protection, ridiculous privileges. Colleges in the Middle Ages were all technically religiously affiliated. So all students and professors were Catholic clergy. So this meant that professors and students weren't supposed to drink excessively, they weren't supposed to mingle with local women at taverns, they were meant to be models of scholarly discipline, but in reality, these students were young men who were away from home for the first time, they got crazy drunk, they got into street fights in the largest cities of Europe, but because the school was a symbol of prosperity, wealth, status, and prestige for the city, this new intellectual population of university-trained professionals were wildly coveted by cities and shielded at all costs by their government and church. The end of the Middle Ages is usually attributed to the chaotic and tumultuous 14th century, which is my favorite century, and this is where I do the bulk of my research. It is truly a horrible time, which is awesome. This is the time of the bubonic plague. This is a time of famine and cannibalism. This is a time of vicious corporal punishment. This is a time of the 100 Years' War. This is the time of the destruction of the medieval Catholic Church. You can tell why I get excited about it. I could go on, and I do in class, much to the dismay of my students who say, all right, let's calm down, just down a notch for the sake of our sanity. To the survivors of this terror, they could only believe that they made it through for a reason. They could only believe that God had chosen them with a purpose, that God had saved them from all of this horrible stuff for a reason. God obviously liked those survivors best. Those who were scorned by God had fallen victim to destruction and disaster, both natural and man-made. It was this next generation that added another layer to our origin story of your experience here at Albright. It was the scholars of the Renaissance who devised the liberal arts. Humanists, as they are known, fully believed that they had a mission to better society, to learn as much as possible about the past, to make sure that their world wouldn't collapse like the Middle Ages. They believed that they could survive and prosper only with a well-rounded education. Literature, music, art, rhetoric, poetry, history, these disciplines were crucial to add to mathematics, to law, to the sciences. By forging connections to all of these realms, only then could they make sure that after their education, in their different occupations, only then could they devise pragmatic, yet thoughtful solutions to the world's problems. Humanists believed in the unlimited potential of mankind, that everyone had an obligation to be knowledgeable and participatory in politics, in the economy, in diplomacy, and in civilization. In the Renaissance, they believed that you couldn't sit back and be a passive member of society. A liberal arts education was meant to transform its population into an active force for good. There's a lot of talk in the media today debating the merits of liberal arts educations, really kind of debating higher education at large. And a lot of these debates, they go back to the vocational schools of the Middle Ages, talking about its importance over liberal arts. And as a medievalist, you like to be relevant in the news for anything other than a person dying of the bubonic plague in Colorado. It's still there. So wash your hands and stay away from squirrels. You think I'm joking? They're vicious. Stay away. I'm not joking. So there is cynicism in the world right now. There is this push to go back to vocational schools, to abandon the liberal arts. But in closing today, I would like to encourage you, more likely plead with you, to keep in mind the intention behind what you're about to become a part of. Think about the eagerness, the willingness, the demand to be taught that created higher education. Think about the optimism, the possibility of all the students that you're following. While you're here, explore with openness all of the opportunities that push you out of your comfort zone over the next 4 years, and have confidence that this all has a purpose, even if it's not immediately transparent. Be teachable in your 4 years at Albright. Realize that you're all starting this process together, and take advantage of the best resource that this school has, and that's its student body. The students at Albright are some of the most supportive, the kindest, the most curious colleagues you were joining, so forge this positivity collectively. And most of all, be thankful that you're the class of 2021 and not 1348. But I'm regretting ending with that joke, so. Thank you.